Happening now on Grid Tonight. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing had a weekend to forget in the Lone Star State. Could the poor showing at Texas be a sign of things to come in the month of May? Several reported a major development today regarding NASCAR team owners. What are they up to? Also, some late-breaking news that happened just moments ago. Colic Racing received the results of its appeal to the National Motorsports Appeals. The L2 level penalties stand or get overturned. Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, and with me is Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat below and ask any questions you may have. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, as Kobe said, had a race to forget at Texas Motor Speedway last Sunday in the NTT IndyCar Series, with all three Hondas struggling for pace all weekend. In the 28-car field, Graham Rahal was the highest qualifying RLL car, 24th fastest. Then Rahal's two teammates took the final row on the qualifying order in 27th and 28th. The race didn't go much better for the organisation, with Rahal crashing out of the race when he struck the rear of Devlin DeFrancesco's slow car, and Rahal's number 15 Honda finished exactly where he qualified in 24th as well. Further down, Jack Harvey and Christian Lundgaard both finished off the lead lap in 18th and 19th place respectively. Lundgaard said they were struggling way too much. The car was all over the place and didn't have the grip to do more in the race. Rahal added the setup was bad during the first two stints, and it took way too long to adjust and have the car come to them. Photo taken by Joe Sabinski as well from the Penske Entertainment team. Bringing Kobe and Matt in as well for the first question tonight. Was this the type of performance you expected from the team at Texas, or were you expecting to be a bit more competitive?
To be honest, I really expected to see Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing more competitive in the race. When we get on the oval tracks, I don't necessarily think of them as a team that's going to necessarily qualify well. I know Graham Rahal throughout his career, he's been known as a racer more than a qualifier, so it's no surprise to see him qualify in the back, but he typically works his way to the front. But for the team as a whole to be struggling like this, I know we'll get into some of the changes that they've made over the offseason in a little bit, but I was just very, very surprised to see Rahal, Harvey, and Lundgaard not have any luck whatsoever during the race. During the first two runs, the team really had a lot of trouble with the speed of the car. Joseph, they were lapping them like crazy. Yeah, they got lapped multiple times, and it just seemed like they just didn't have the pace at all. And then Graham get taken out in that crash. Super unfortunate. Nothing he could have done there. Harvey and Lundgaard doing the best that they could with the car. So I truly expected to see them. I certainly didn't expect to see them struggle as much as they did at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, it was a big struggle, wasn't it? As you say, they all three cars in the bottom five in qualifying and didn't make any progress in the race, as we saw from the image, and some scary images with that Rahal shunt during the race. He was very lucky to not get up into the catch fence after using Devlin DeFrancesco as a ramp. But Jack and Christian all the way down there as well, just kind of rolling on a bit from St. Pete, where they had some struggles on a completely different setup and course and everything else. Let's see how they go in a couple of weeks at Long Beach, which is again back to the street course, but not the greatest of starts for a team that we kind of thought would be in that sort of top 10 mix for the season. We know Lundgaard has come in and done pretty well in his short time in that team. Obviously, Jack Harvey had his crash at St. Pete where he got injured a little bit, so he was a little bit on the back foot. But maybe the unfortunate snowball effect of being on the back foot for that team is getting going. Let's hope they can turn it around when we get to Long Beach in a couple of weeks' time. But it really has not been a good start for them at all.
No, it certainly hasn't, indeed. And entering 2023, they were highly expectations as well coming from Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, especially after they made some high-profile additions to improve its IndyCar program. They strengthened the engineering department as well by hiring Stefano Sordo, who joined the team as the new technical director. Now, Sordo has had a ton of experience as well in Formula One. He spent 6 years at McLaren before getting involved with the Rahal team as well. So he was a very big key figure to hire and snap up for the IndyCar team. Of course, saw his time with McLaren's F1 program as well. He was their head of director of vehicle performance. And before that, he was a member of Red Bull Racing as well. Also, with team president Piers Phillips departing the organization, RLL hired Steve Erickson as well to be the chief operating officer. And Erickson brought 30 years of experience from Honda Performance Development and 2 years leading Chip Ganassi Racing's Cadillac prototype program in IMSA. And after not being able to show much as a team at Texas, Jack Harvey said they had a lot of work to do before the Indy 500. And speaking of Indy, their plan to add a fourth car to the month of May for Catherine Legg as well. That could be absolutely epic. And the photo there, both of them were courtesy of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. And coming to you guys once more, should the team be concerned about the month of May now? And could the expansion for Indy actually do more harm than it would good?
Really excited for that Catherine Legg story. Hopefully that does come to pass and she can get a good run in the race. Concerned maybe yes, but we know how much track time pre-race we get at Indianapolis where once we got through the Indy GP, and we've got 2 weeks of practice pretty much. So hopefully they can go better. We saw a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Rahal had a half decent shout to win before he had the wheel come off coming out of the pit lane. A couple of years in Indianapolis, did you say? Yes, Matthew. We're talking about Indianapolis. Matthew Owens, the Indianapolis Oracle, joining us in the chat as always. But hopefully, Graham's got a pretty decent record at the 500 when he can get to the finish. So hopefully he can be the spearhead for the team when we get to the Speedway in a couple of 6 or so weeks' time now, and bring that team forward. And of course, he did get his last wins at Detroit, so that's the Gold Coast that we're not on the Belle Isle circuit anymore. But that seems like a very long time ago when Graham did that double in Detroit. So hopefully they can get the ship righted, and Indianapolis, of course, being a good place to get it going again.
Yeah, we're actually going to be at Indianapolis later this month because we got the open test right before the festivities in the month of May come around. And when you go to Texas Motor Speedway and struggle on an oval like that, you're certainly not going to feel confident about your oval program heading into the month of May. But for the longest time, Texas had been after the Indy 500 during the summer, and then we went like several years or so without an oval before the Indianapolis 500, and so the Indianapolis 500 was the first oval on the calendar, and now you have Texas, get a race under your belt to see where you are. And overall, you brought up a really good point, Matt, talk about all the time you get with practice. You're gonna get the open test later this month, and you're gonna get all day long, multiple days during the month of May of practice. So I think Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing will have a lot of time to dial in their setups for the month of May. So I don't think it's anything they should totally be concerned about now. But as you know, like I said, in qualifying, especially on the ovals, you don't really expect to see them qualify up towards the front. I know, like, for the past few years, their cars have been qualifying towards the back. Last year's Indy 500, all of their cars did not qualify well. Yeah, and they certainly want to make sure that their qualifying setup is going to be a lot better than it was last year, especially if we somehow get more than 33 entries for this year's Indy 500, and we might have to bring the bump day back. So they want to make sure they get all 4 of their cars in the field. And I know sometimes when you're looking at an expansion, it can be a bad thing, especially if your program is struggling. But like you guys were saying, it's really nice to see Catherine Legg back. And she had a really good test session there with Linus Lundqvist earlier in the week at Texas after the IndyCar race. She's really pumped, very excited to be back in the IndyCar for the first time in a very long time. And it's certainly going to be wishing Catherine the best as she gets another run at the greatest spectacle in racing. Yeah. But overall, looking at the expansion, it can potentially not affect your program, but at the same time, it can. We saw it happen with Carlin Racing just a handful of years ago. I believe they had Max Chilton, Pato O'Ward, and then they were also had a technical alliance with McLaren Racing when they had Fernando Alonso. And all of those cars that they had, Carlin was struggling. Then they had a struggling McLaren program trying to support them, and it just didn't go over well at all. So that's an example of how expansion can really hurt you.
And of course, McLaren have got another expansion coming on the grid this year as well, with Montoya joining the lineup as well for the 500. So that's going to be even more epic. I love what Matthew Owens is saying in the chat right now as well. I can bring it on as well myself. Graham has been 10th or worse in 6 of the last 7 500s as well, which I think is an amazing stat. And that's why we call him the Oracle as well. Oh, it's not Montoya, it's Tony Kanaan, isn't it, coming through as well? As well, Kirby saving me with that one as well. Montoya not doing that, he's going over elsewhere, isn't he? But it is Tony Kanaan coming through. Forgot it was not Montoya. It was like, do you remember when last year, guys, when McLaren were literally having every single driver signed up for the 500, and it was like they're going to host like the entire 33 car field. It's balmy, and he really does struggle actually to remember who was where. Yes, that's going to be fun. Okay, moving on to our second story of the evening as well. According to several motorsport journalists, NASCAR team owners have boycotted an important team council meeting today with the sanctioning body. Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal called this a symbolic boycott because the team owners feel that talks regarding new revenue are not progressing. However, Bob Pockrass from Fox Sports said the meeting wasn't planned to necessarily discuss the revenue distribution model, but about invitations in the sport as well. Or is that initiative, sorry, in the sports? I've not got my glasses on. In an article written by Jenna Freyer as well from the Associated Press, it says teams are feeling frustrated with the series leadership over the slow pace of negotiations over the new business model. 3 anonymous sources told the AP they don't believe NASCAR is negotiating in good faith. It is also being reported that teams want to see NASCAR CEO Jim France and Executive Vice Chair Lessa France Kennedy at the meetings moving forward. Jeff Gluck from the Atlantic as well, the Athletic, says his anonymous sources claim there's a disagreement between the teams and NASCAR over making the charter system permanent. And if you'd like to know more about this developing situation, we've included a link to the AP article in the video description below, and the graphic there courtesy of NASCAR. Tell what the long words very much needs glasses for this one, but Bob Pockrass's statement here says, this is NASCAR's response to today's storyline. NASCAR is committed to open and productive dialogue on a regular basis with all industry stakeholders. We remain committed to ongoing discussions in the spirit of collaboration and with the shared goal of growing our sport for the benefit of all stakeholders. Matt, does it sound like there's some major trouble brewing between NASCAR team owners and the sanctioning body?
Trouble at Mill, potentially, in Daytona Beach. This is all very Formula One, Josh, isn't it, this?
Yeah, it is.
Teams versus sanctioning body, bashing heads over money, the beginning of something potentially. We need to know what's happening with the TV deal as well. That's all bubbling away in the background too, the next set of TV deal. The charter system is, I think, a bit of a key point here. If we open it up, the financial situation, generally in the world at the moment isn't the greatest as it's ever been. We're not talking mid 2000s, but more teams will come, like we saw at COTA with all these extra cars trying to get in the show. And thankfully, there was enough spots for Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen and Conor Daly to get in. But if we're having to then have qualifying where people miss out, then that's where the charter system is going to come under fire, because there's going to be maybe some people that will miss races, and that's money to these teams, and that's where they want to keep the charter system in, because it guarantees them a spot in the show every weekend. So I think it seems like NASCAR want to open that back up again, and the teams obviously are against it. There's maybe some other things in the pipeline as well. I know the schedule's obviously been tweaked over the last few years, but there's been some talk of that, and the ratings over the weekend for the race, although it was on FS1 rather than on Big Fox on Sunday afternoon, were not the best. So a lot of things bubbling around in the background. I think this is kind of one that'll run a little bit through the summer, with all the different threads and strands to this story will come up, and of course we'll keep you posted on all of the ins and outs of it here on the show every week.
I must also just apologise if you can hear anything in the background. Usually, what is a quiet time of evening, it's now turned into Piccadilly Circus outside the room I am broadcasting from. And this lavender microphone, which is what it's called, it's not a normal tie mic, it's sort of a boom so that it can go omnidirectional areas and it's picking up the sound. So I do apologise if you can hear it. I'll get it up here next time on my face as well. Hello to Josh T as well, who's watching in the chat. Now, only minutes before we came on air tonight, we received a ruling on Kellogg's Racing appeal for the L2 level penalty system as well. Kellogg as well. It sounds so much like the cereal over here in the UK. The National Motorsports Appeal Panel decided to uphold the penalty. The $100,000 fine and 4 race crew chief suspensions will stand as well, while the 100-point penalty in the Drivers' and Owners' Championship will drop down to a 75-point penalty. Now, recently, Hendrick Motorsports had their L2 level penalty upheld, but the entire points penalties as well was rescinded, unlike with Kellogg as well, who just get 25 points back for the number 31 Chevrolet of Justin Haley. Now, Matt, with Hendrick and Kellogg as well receiving the same penalty but different results after the appeal, does there need to be more transparency about the appeal process to explain inconsistency in calls like this? And definitely, that just sounded completely Formula One with insistent rule clauses.
Yeah, I know, it's bizarre. It's been a weekend of inconsistent penalties. We'll get to that maybe in knots later.
Yeah.
The penalty was issued for the Hendrick stuff out the same time as colleague. The things they had that were against the rules didn't even make it on the racetrack in the race. They were taken off them after practice. Hendrick have got their points back, but still have the monetary fine and the crew chief suspension. And kind of all of it, apart from a little bit of a tweak, has been kept for Justin Haley and colleague. It's very bizarre. Different set of people on the panel today than there was, I think it was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, that the Hendrick stuff came through.
Yeah.
So why, as I said to Kobe just before we went on air, when we were chatting in the green room, why this couldn't have been hashed out at the same time as the HMS stuff a couple of weeks ago is really silly. There's been a lot of people on social media saying, NASCAR's pandering to Hendrick again. This is not the first time it happened, or probably last, but this isn't a NASCAR thing. It's the appeals panel, as you mentioned, Josh. So very inconsistent rules, regulations, and results from the appeal. I don't quite get how we've come to this when the Larson, Bowman, Byron, and Josh Berry stuff a couple of weeks ago, was thrown out in terms of points, although Berry wasn't running for points. But very, very bizarre why we've got 2 different outcomes to the same problem.
I wonder if Carlig as well are going to throw things back as well and say this isn't fair. Well, we want another retrial as well. Adam Leverage says, I'm looking forward to the Bristol Dirt Race on Easter Sunday. Going to be intense racing. I certainly am. I'll be watching as well. And it's going to be an interesting, nice little weekend. I love it when we go dirt racing. I'm hoping it's a bit better than last year, though, Matt, when the dirt was sort of it was wet, wasn't it? So the dirt sort of got brushed aside, and we got sort of the tarmac coming through. This year, I'm hoping it's going to be a lot drier and we get more dirt racing, not mud racing.
Yeah, potentially. It's they've moved it back in the day, so I think it's like a midnight start for us in the UK on Sunday night. The job it's Easter Monday, really, to catch up on it. But interesting to see. Ben's got it right there. The only consistency is being consistent. Just breaking, Kobe just popped in our chat here. Chris Rice is going to make a statement probably about the top of the next hour. So if we're still on air, we'll try and bring that to you before we go offline this afternoon, this evening. Bristol Dirt will be awesome, says Josh. Bob, fall asleep halfway through, though. Yes, it's a late one for us on this side of the pond this weekend on a quiet weekend.
I'll grab my iPad out ready. Yes.
Josh has got the tweets ready and his best Jake Humphrey impression with his iPad in hand.
Get the hashtags in.
Bristol is the only pick a winner. We're not talking about pick a winner tonight for the first time on the show in a couple of weeks, but it will be the only pick a winner race for us over the weekend. So look out for the pick a winner bits and pieces on the social media from us over the weekend. Get your picks in.
got an interesting tweet here, and it's actually what we were just talking about before we got the questions coming in. Jonathan Control One asked Bob Pockrass, "Can't Car Racing appeal one more time to a finals appeals in person?" Bob Pockrass has answered, "Yes, Car can appeal to the final appeals offer. Langley Speedway promoter Bill Mullins as well." That's all he put in the tweet there as well. So it looks like they can appeal one more time. So this certainly isn't the last we're going to be hearing from this as well. So we'll keep an eye out for that statement from Chris Rice coming in around about 20 minutes time. In the meantime, though, Matt, it's your turn to take over the show because you've got the latest from Grid EPI in the update.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. It's a bit of a Repsol Honda appealing of an appeal of a penalty, or not a penalty from MotoGP land from last week. But less about that for the minute. Let's talk about the Endurance Performance Index. It's coming to a head next week on the show. We'll have the first top 10 to bring you after this weekend's races over the Easter weekend at Bathurst for the opening rounds of the GT World Challenge Australia. 2 races across the weekend supporting the Bathurst 6-hour production car race. Won't be part of the EPI, but as it's at Bathurst, we'll bring you the winners from that race on the show next week before we roll into the top 10. So we'll have the grid ranking out at the weekend, and we'll have the grid EPI exclusively to Grid Tonight on next Wednesday's show. But races from the weekend just gone, we had 3. One of them in Germany, second round of the Nürburgring Landstrecke Series. NLS2 was again won by BMW, their second win on the Nordschleife for the season, but this time by the Walkenhorst team. Jesse Krohn and Kuba Gimasiak winning the 4-hour race on Saturday afternoon. So Rover Racing won the first one and Walkenhorst have won the second one. And we had racing at Sonoma over the weekend. Always strange to see Sonoma with grass growing around the edges. It always freaks me out from watching NASCAR races in the summer when it's just dust. But the GT World Challenge America program got underway there. 2 races. Eric Figueras and Stephen McAleer won on Saturday, and George Kurtz and Colin Braun won on Sunday. Watch out for Colin Braun. He's in the top 10 at the moment. If things don't change over the weekend, we can have to see the top American in the grid EPI, which will bring you in next week's show, the first top 10 of the year.
Absolutely, and we've just got a couple of bits before we throw to Kobe's segment as well, and it all comes as well from Adam saying, "Josh, thoughts on Gordon Shedden not in the BTCC this year?" Yes, unfortunately, Team Dynamics, which is more commonly known as Honda Eurasif Racing in the British Touring Car Championship, have today announced that they will not be taking part in this season of the touring cars. And in the statement they put out, former driver as well, a champion of the series, and the Team Dynamics team owner, Matt Neal, said, "This has been an extremely difficult decision for us to make as a business. Unfortunately, with the current economical climate, we have not been able to secure the commercial partnerships required to commit to the forthcoming BTCC season. I've been in the BTCC all my life, and it has presented us with many fantastic opportunities and memories. So I'm extremely disappointed that we will not be directly involved, and saddened for our dedicated employees, partners, fans, and supporters. However, we will still want to keep the Honda brand at the forefront of racing and ultimately winning races as well. So hopefully as well, they'll be back next year." They ended the statement with, "We would like to thank everyone involved in the BTCC, especially Alan Gow, who has supported us over the years. We wish all the teams and drivers, particularly One Motorsport with Neil Brown Engineering, the best of luck for the forthcoming season. We hope to be actively back in the BTCC in the future." I suppose the one good news is that ITV can drag Gordon Shedden, Jack Rowbottom, and Matt Neal into the commentary box at some point. And if not, I know a certain commentary box that they can all come into, as I've chatted to a couple of them over the years. But Matt, just getting your immediate thought on that with the touring cars as well.
I missed it come out this morning, caught up with it this afternoon. But yeah, what a strange turn of events. We're not going to have Jason Plato or Matt Neal or Matt Neal's team on the grid next year. What is happening to the Touring Car Championship after all these years? Going to be strange to watch out for. Looking forward to Touring Cars. Gets underway at Donington, doesn't it, in a couple of weeks' time? The first round normally would have already started by now, but a late start for Touring Cars this year. But yeah, really, really odd. Well, not odd, I guess, but the sign of the times. I was saying about financial stuff a little while ago. Sign of the times. Josh popping in there. Yes, I saw that. Good news. GT World Challenge continuing at Brands Hatch until 2025 for sprint races. That is excellent. Shame we lost the Silverstone round for endurance, but good to have Brands Hatch continuing on the GT calendar as well. And real shame actually for you. You either loved him or hated him in the Plato Neal battle throughout the years, but real shame for that team not to be on the grid going forward. Hopefully they'll be back soon.
Yeah, and Josh is going to be at Brands on the media day as well, the 12th. I was hoping to go down and still might be able to attend, but right now, as always, funding is the issue. But if Josh is trackside as well, we'll be doing a special little preview show as well, hopefully, as we know from doing it before. Josh, it does have signal from Brands, so we'll be doing a special little thing, and I'll be getting him to go around doing some interviews with some drivers as well, and we'll also play those out on one of the grid shows as well, with some wrap-ups from the touring cars. But anyway, a little bit of a story there that got derailed and added in thanks to Adam's comments, so thank you for that, Adam. But it is time now for Kobe to take us through everything else that's happened around the motorsport world. Over to you, Kobe.
Thank you, Josh. And we're actually going to start off this segment talking about some really sad news that broke like right around the time that we went on the air tonight. AJ Foyt Racing released a statement saying it is with immense sorrow that we at AJ Foyt Enterprises share the news of Lucy Foyt's passing after a very brief illness. The beautiful matriarch of the family for nearly 7 decades, Lucy's love and unwavering support for her husband AJ, their family, and the entire Foyt organization was immeasurable. We are heartbroken on behalf of the Foyt family. We ask for privacy during this incredibly difficult time. Funeral arrangements are Lucy Foyt, a longtime wife of the great AJ Foyt. She's sadly passed away. On behalf of everybody here at Grid Network, we extend our deepest condolences to AJ Foyt and the entire Foyt family during this very difficult time. And next, moving on to our next story, 3-time NHRA Fun Car champion Ron Capps will make his debut in the Superstar Racing Experience SRX Series at Eldora Speedway. Capps will become the first drag racer to compete in the 6-week summer racing series on Thursday, August 10th. He said SRX pretty much took the motorsports world by storm 3 years ago and called it an honor to be selected to compete in SRX this summer. While he's used to driving in a straight line at a high rate of speed, Capps knows this experience on the dirt will be out of his comfort zone. However, he's determined to try his best and make the NHRA community proud. Graphic courtesy of SRX. Dorna Sports have hired Dan Rossamondo to be the new chief commercial officer. Rossamondo joins MotoGP after spending time working in the NBA with less than 2 weeks until the Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas at COTA. Rossamondo will lead media rights, global commercial partnerships, and digital business teams to utilize his experience to continue international growth of MotoGP's profile, audience, and revenue. During his time with the NBA, he's served as Vice President of Global Partnerships and Media. He received his bachelor's degree at the MBA from New York University. His career started off in advertising sales at the Madison Square Garden, going on to IMG, Time Warner Global Media, the NBA, and now Dorna Sports. The photo you see of Dan Rossamondo, courtesy of MotoGP. Guys, it really seems like MotoGP got a real heavy, serious guy. Lists all the places he's been, where he studied. When you get somebody from the NBA, you've really done something.
Yes, and they need to do something, don't they? Because MotoGP is struggling with the lack of superstars since Rossi left and Marquez has been injured over the last couple of years. Something needs to change at Dorna and at MotoGP. Hopefully, this is the upward curve that they needed, and it looks like it's gone down quite well with most of the media over the last few hours since that news broke this morning. So good stuff. Hopefully, that coming from MotoGP.
Yeah, Josh, when I found it, I literally said it as I thought of it as well. But that was always the plan, to get something sorted as well with a little show before we actually went as a preview to the season as well. But yeah, that's if you're going down now, I know that you're definitely going to be getting some interviews for us. But I like the fact that we're getting people from MotoGP from all sorts of areas, because it very much has been a sort of like a Bernie Ecclestone approach in the last couple of years as well. One single person at the top as well, and everyone around sort of having to dance around and do all this. It just doesn't work anymore. For sports to flourish, they've got to have a group of people around so that there's less pressure on one singular person, and also it doesn't become a dictatorship. And I think it grows every much. Look at what Formula One was under Bernie, and then look what Formula One's become under Liberty. Like it or not, Liberty have managed to grow the sport exponentially as well. And I think Formula One is up there with one of the biggest as well motorsport series now being broadcast around the world. if you go back, 7 or 8 years as well, if you look at the 2016 stats, MotoGP was the most watched motorsport on the planet. And now, if you look at it as well, Formula One is beating them by around about 9 to 10% over the overall viewing figures as well. Formula One is on like 17 and MotoGP struggling to even get 9 or 10. So it really is a massive shift. And that is because we've lost the likes of Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Casey Stoner stopped in 2012 as well. Marquez has been injured in the past couple. There's a real image problem with MotoGP. The sprint races that have come in are sort of working in one way and then not working another. We've had 2 weekends, 4 races in total. 5 riders have been injured as a result of it because of the fatigue. So it's sort of like closing in and switching between the two. They've got to find what works for them and what image works for them. Josh said, good time to mention I've never done an interview before. Don't worry, you've seen me do it many a times as well. Just sort of, literally all you've got to do is ask one question, just shove the microphone in the face. The drivers just ramble, don't they, guys? The drivers just ramble, especially if they're angry, just let them be angry. It's fun.
Yes, see Carlos Sainz's interview in the Pen on
Sunday. Oh, no, I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want to talk about that right now, Matt. I don't want to talk about that.
We'll save it for the minute when we come to knots, because it's time for hots and knots. And as we've been talking about IndyCar and Indianapolis, I normally go clockwise on my screen, but because we've been talking about IndyCar, we'll go anti-clockwise on my screen. So, Kobe, we'll come to you first with your hot from the week.
We're doing hots first?
We're doing hots first.
Oh well, I already have my knot ready.
Okay.
So
well, we'll do hots.
yeah. I'm gonna just start with knots, and my knot is going to be the end of the Formula One Australian Grand Prix. That still leaves a sour taste in my mouth trying to do a green white checkered finish there, and still didn't get the green flag finish that they wanted to get, and as it's not just one certain series. This is motorsports whole. That seems like they're trying to put entertainment over the integrity of the sport, and like I said in the past, you need to find the right balance to that, but it seems like they're putting like 60-70% on entertainment and then the rest on integrity. I think once you find that right balance, it's fine. But what Formula One did, although they followed the rules, it's still not look, because that's all we're talking about now after the Australian Grand Prix. It shouldn't be talking about other stories as well, like some of the great racing we saw in the midfield. We had some really great battles, and it's unfortunate all of that is going to go overshadowed because of the drama there at the end.
Josh?
I completely agree with you, Kobe, as well on that. My hot from the weekend is Brad Binder doing something I don't think I've seen in a very long time, comically enough, in MotoGP, if you didn't know. It was in the sprint race in mixed conditions. I'd say it was a dry track, but it was still greasy. We had a lot of rain over the weekend as well. And Saturday was a dry session, but there was grease around. Went from 15th place in where he qualified by lap 3? He was leading the race as well. Unbelievable performance there as well. In a MotoGP race, and especially in a sprint to that. And he had the pace and he had the performance. And then in the Grand Prix, we all expected him to do it again, but it was in very wet conditions. And unfortunately, he did crash and was the first to crash as well. So it was very much a difference there.
Yeah, excellent. Adam's hot. Nice to see multiple winners in supercars at Albert Park. Well, it would have been nice to see them if anyone could see them outside of Australia, what we talked about last week. And he's not, as we mentioned, Shedden and the Honda team out of touring cars. I'll do mine together. So Kobe's done his not and Josh has done his hot. Yeah. So if Josh wants to do his not, then Kobe can do his hot, and then I'll do mine together at the end. Josh, go back to you with your not.
Okay, my not as well, I think, would be Ferrari from the weekend, because they were having another miserable one from hell. And I hope you got undone for the joking. I wasn't being rude to you, Matt, by the way. I was doing the Carlos Sainz bit. I'm not going to talk right now. I'll literally get fined as well if I'm not here. I think Ferrari had another miserable weekend, and I think I found it quite comical. Charles Leclerc, 3 races we've had, 2 races he's retired from as well. He only has 6 points to his name. McLaren have one good weekend, and Lando's ahead of him. Oops. So you're not even Ferrari, don't want me to talk. My mic's come off. It's the FIA. They're fixing it, man. This has been manipulated. Anyway, Yeah, so Ferrari have a bad weekend again. McLaren have one good weekend, and bang, up they go ahead of Lando Norris ahead of him. I found that fantastically funny. Charles binning into the gravel, I think, was one of the weirdest crashes I've seen all season because it was unexpected. We were looking, Russell was leading, Hamilton right up the inside, making a great move on Verstappen, and all of a sudden there's a Ferrari in the gravel trap. It just came out of nowhere. And Josh says, well, Ferrari's gotten so bad that Matt Gallagher has become a Red Bull fan. Josh knows this as well. I said in the watch-along commentary, and into the gravel goes Charles Leclerc, and somewhere in the background I could hear Matt Gallagher screaming because he put on all the Red Bull gear as well. It was actually a Danny Ricciardo jacket, and it was his girlfriend Sophie's jacket as well. And he stretched it, so she's not too happy with him about that as well. I saw on Instagram. But yeah, so it was literally just Ferrari being Ferrari, and Carlos then as well. The team not really helping him with the penalty situation. From my understanding, they didn't actually speak to the FIA until after the race and to say that they were going to protest the decision. And it was all a bit Ferrari. And I think Frederick Vasseur has been thrown into the deep end. He can only look good in this situation, and it's not actually his fault. His hands this year are very much tied by the decisions that were made winter last year before he got the role, with Matteo Binotto still as effective team principal, and he can't change the strategy department. How long is the strategy guy going to stay in charge before getting sacked? Because I would have sacked him as soon as I got the job. There's no second chances. This is a Formula One team. This is Ferrari, the most successful team in Formula One, and you are underperforming in your job. You are sacked. End of. You have no business in Ferrari. You have no business in Formula One. If you can't perform and do your job to the best of your ability, you're sacked. Any of us guys, if we didn't do our job, we would be sacked. There should be no excuses, and that is what I don't like. This is a top. I wish, who my perfect Ferrari team principal would be? Eddie Jordan. That guy would take nothing from no one. He would literally be sacking him immediately. And I think, so they're my not Ferrari.
Kobe, you're hot, as we're all over the place here.
yeah, Josh, you gave me a lot of time to think of a hot. I'm actually gonna do two knots. I mean 2 hots. Yeah. I'm gonna do 2 hots. Yeah, my first hot gonna give it. Yeah, it's gonna be Josh Berry for a runner-up finish at Richmond. That was very impressive. That he was able to do that in the NASCAR Cup Series car when he was the replacement for Chase Elliott on all the oval races. A lot of people felt like this would be Josh Berry's big shot to show what he can do in competitive Cup equipment, and a lot of people thought he could do what he did at Richmond, and he finally did it. Very, very impressive strategy call there at the end to put himself in position to try to challenge Kyle Larson for the win there. Josh Berry, for some interesting decisions he may have to make in future seasons. And my second has to be the top 20 run that Chandler Smith had as well in his NASCAR Cup Series debut. And as we know, it's not easy to hop the NASCAR Cup Series car nowadays to try to go out there and get a good finish among all of the most competitive drivers out there. And for Chandler Smith to finish higher than his teammates, Justin Haley, AJ Allmendinger, outrun them by a lot and finish in the top 20 and race some of the big names in the NASCAR Cup Series. Thought it was a very impressive young for a driver who has a super bright future in NASCAR. And before I turn it back over to you, Matt, just got a statement from Roger Penske on the passing of Lucy Foyt. Roger Penske said, I've known AJ and Lucy Foyt nearly as long as I've been involved in racing. So much of AJ's racing success was rooted in the solid foundation of love and support that Lucy provided for him throughout his career. Racing can be a tough business, and AJ was not immune to the dangers drivers often face. It was Lucy who was always there to help AJ navigate through the hard times and get him back to his winning ways. More importantly, Lucy's commitment to the Foyt family, keeping the family connected, allowed AJ to focus on being one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. I truly believe that it would have been hard for AJ to achieve all of his on-track success without Lucy. Our prayers and condolences are with AJ and the entire Foyt family. So that's a statement there from Roger Penske.
Just want to point out, we're not all being rude. We're all looking at the statement because it's 20 minutes coming in.
I was actually looking to see if there was any Chris Rice news, but that
that's what I'm doing as well.
earlier on. So I've got the floor then for hots and for nots. I'll start with hot, and I'm surprised that neither of you mentioned the whole of the IndyCar race. It was incredible. I know we've talked about it a lot on the show, on the network already this weekend or this week.
Is it bad? Is it bad to mention that I only commentated on 60 laps of that race because I had to go do MotoGP?
Yeah,
I had it on the screen. I had it on the screen, and I was so jealous of the fact that the mainly bits of the pack racing I wasn't calling. I hated that as well. But it was a fantastic race, and it actually slipped my mind. I've still got to listen back to that 60 laps I missed, because I did. It was 200 laps. I did the first 30 and the last 30, so I missed a good chunk of the race thanks to MotoGP.
Yeah, really, really good race, and proves you can finish a race in the scheduled distance without stopping it too. It was a shame, but these things happen. So that's my hot. My not is kind of linked to what we were talking about before with the end of the Grand Prix, but actually the inconsistencies of penalties generally in motorsport. Sainz gets penalised for an accident which may or may not have happened, depending on what kind of result sheet you look at. Logan Sargent didn't get a penalty. And Pierre Gasly, who probably should be banned for Baku for just meandering across the road right and taking his teammate off, didn't get a penalty. Kevin Magnussen's shunt was very bizarre. We had in MotoGP, Scott Ogden got a time penalty in Moto3 for knocking Al Mansur off at the end, but Taki Nakagami harpooning Fabio Quartararo in the first lap of the MotoGP race got nothing. There was something else over the weekend as well in penalty land that just, can we just get people penalised properly, please? It's starting to get very messy across all of the championships at the moment, and yeah, just needs sorting out.
I think the talking from the F1 point of view as well, with the Carlos Sainz situation, I don't know when you cross the line. So it's the fact that, do we actually need to hear from the drivers? Is that a situation we need to think of? Do we, when it comes to penalties, do we need to hear the driver's point of view? Considering the fact that at the time the race was stopped, what's stopping the FIA getting on the radio and talking to him then? What was the hold up?
Yeah, it could have been done then, couldn't it? You're right.
Yeah, we were under red flag for like 45 minutes to complete the final lap of the race, and there was plenty of time to talk to them. I mean, Fernando was talking to the stewards, so was Lance Stroll, so was Lawrence Stroll. Why wasn't Carlos allowed to talk to the stewards as well? And could have easily come over the radio and just said, all right, this is the FIA, what are you going to do? Because the FIA race director has the ability to talk to all the drivers, the stewards should be able to have the same factor. And Carlos could have made a speech over the radio and not the, no, please, guys, please, don't. Could have just said what he thought, and the stewards would have taken that into consideration.
Much like they do in Formula E, which Scott Elkins and how he does things in Formula E is really good. Also, I have an additional knot, which I've just thought of while you were chatting, Josh, there. There's much confusion going on under that last red flag of what they would do next when the leader has already crossed the timing line to start the last lap. There was no other way they could have finished that race. So why we had to sit around for that long deciding what we needed to do was a bit silly to me. But
I don't know why we restarted.
Much like Suzuka last year, Sky in their commentary box had absolutely no idea what was going on.
Well, it amazingly took them 45 minutes. Well, I don't know. It took them 25 minutes to realise the fact that Alonso was correcting what he said, that they hadn't gone through the first sector point. We realised that as soon as the red flag came out, because sector 1 was after turn 7. So it's quite a big first sector at Albert Park. So we realised that not all the cars had passed the control line. We couldn't establish a field, so it would go back to the previous start. But in many respects, that's wrong, because that rule only is supposed to apply on the opening lap of the Grand Prix. This was a restart. So there's a hole in the rule there in terms of the fact this was a restart. The race resumes. It doesn't start. Ergo, there was a result at the start line. Do you get what I mean? They completed a lap. They crossed it and completed a lap.
Yeah, very messy.
The rules need adjusting massively as well. And I'm hoping that we get it sorted ASAP. And we are still stalling as well, just to see if we've got anything coming up. I'll ask as well if there's anything that have come up from any information at the moment from the interview that's currently going on NASCAR Race Hub. Somebody can drop that in the private chat for us as well. But I will continue with saying that this weekend, what we've got coming up, I may as well just talk about as well.
Yeah.
On Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, we have Women in Motorsports as well. Saturday, noon Eastern, we have our Grid Live pre-race show, and only NASCAR to discuss on this Easter weekend as well. And on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Grid Live Encore, full recaps of NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and the NASCAR Cup Series at Bristol Dirt as well. We're combining the shows as well for the wrap-ups because there's only one to talk about as well. So a reminder as well, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 600 subscribers now in the last 3 days. Now let's see if we can reach 700 subscribers as well. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications and follow all our social media platforms and visit gridranking.com. Take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon as well. Join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin and David in investing each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you all to join the amazing group of people who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start expanding our coverage, adding new members to the team, and an increased Grid Network presence on site covering the races from the track and more content. The link to that is in the video description. You might have already seen some new talent bubbling around Grid Network in the start of this season as well. We're very pleased to have them all join the team. And if you want to do a one-time donation, then click on the Buy Me a Coffee link as well. Get your name on the board and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee and they'll thank you on the air. Now, just to confirm, there is nothing we've heard on news at the moment, is there, from anything?
Doesn't look like it.
No, I'm looking as well, so...
Yeah, it looks like he's coming on at the very end of the show.
Okay. Well, we'll leave you news then that the Denny Hamlin appeal is on tomorrow, on Thursday as well. And we'll bring you any updates to this story as well in the Grid Live pre-race show on Saturday as well. For Kobe Lambert at the podium finish and Matt White from Grid EPI, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.